Egyptian intelligence officials claim that Jerusalem allegedly ignored repeated warnings that Hamas was planning an attack on Israel, including an alleged direct notice from Cairo's intelligence minister to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So let's start with the specific warnings, and then we'll go to other allegations in regard to why Israel missed the intel that predicted that this kind of attack was going to happen. The Egyptian official said Egypt, which often serves as a mediator between Israel and Hamas, had spoken repeatedly with the Israelis about something big without elaborating. He said Israeli officials were focused on the West Bank and played down the threat from Gaza. Now, there has been flare-ups in violence in the West Bank between IDF soldiers and Palestinian residents in the West Bank. Part of that has to do with the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu allows for the building of illegal settlements in the area. Every time there is a religious holiday, there's more violence in that area. So a lot of the attention has been directed to the West Bank. And so the allegation is when there was intel in regard to Hamas planning some sort of invasion out of Gaza, the Israeli government was not really paying attention to it. Now, according to the Egyptian official who spoke to the Associated Press, we have warned them an explosion of the situation is coming and very soon, and it would be big, but they underestimated such warnings. And Netanyahu responded to that by saying that it's fake news, because I guess that's all you need to do as a politician these days when you hear something you don't like. No early message came from Egypt, and the prime minister did not speak or meet with the intelligence chief since the establishment of the government. Not indirectly or directly, Netanyahu's office said in a statement earlier in the day, but it appears that there were in fact some very specific warnings from specific officials from Egypt. It's one thing to hear from unnamed sources, it's another thing to hear from specific individuals. So in one of the warnings, according to the Times of Israel, Egypt's intelligence minister, General Abbas Kamel, personally called Netanyahu only 10 days before the massive attack to say that Gazans were likely to do something unusual, a terrible operation, according to the Ynet news site. And unnamed Egyptian officials told the site that they were shocked by Netanyahu's alleged indifference to the news and said that the premier told the prime minister that the military was submerged in troubles in the West Bank. Now, there's also the judicial crisis, which is being partially blamed for the Israeli government missing some of the warning signs. We'll get to that in just a moment. Cenk, what do you think?
So, look, I don't. There's always theories that come out about, hey, did FDR know that we were gonna get hit on Pearl Harbor, but he let it happen anyway. There's theories about 9/11, blah, blah, blah. But the things that we do know is Bush got a warning, intelligence saying bin Laden determined to strike inside America. And he didn't do anything. He literally told the guy, you covered your ass, go home. Bush was on a month-long vacation and he didn't want to hear it. So I don't know if Netanyahu purposely ignored it. There's no way of knowing, and that sounds, it's a theory. You can call it a theory, a conspiracy theory, whatever you like, okay? Although there are sources, right? So this is not just made up from Bob on Facebook. Okay, but either way, all right, Mr. Tough Guy Netanyahu, so you missed it. This happened on your watch. Now, I know what happens. Both Bush, Cheney, and Rudy Giuliani, they all bragged. It happened on my watch, that's why I'm awesome. Are you? No, that shows you're not awesome. You let this happen. Now you can go back and kill other people, and Netanyahu is gonna do that, that's what he's best at. But why didn't you actually protect people? Why didn't you protect Israeli citizens? I know when people get emotional and riled up in a situation, very understandably so in this case, what do? They rally around the leader. We did it here in America in 2004. We reelected Bush, even though he's a moron and he let 9/11 happen and he was totally negligent, okay? But that'll probably happen for Netanyahu. But if you're Israeli, you should be livid that Netanyahu is too worried about corruption and taking away Supreme Court powers and taking away rights from Israelis. And he didn't notice the biggest offensive against Israel, in my lifetime that I remember consciously. So that happened on your watch, Netanyahu. So you tell me, what was it? You didn't mind, or you're terrible at protecting the Israeli people. Because the right wing is always bragging about how we protect. Do you? Because it doesn't look like you did.
Well, in addition to that, I want to get into the discussion about the judicial crisis, which of course is Netanyahu's making, and that led to division among the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. It led to reservists refusing to, report to duty. It led to mass protests, many of which we covered here on the show. Some say it's too early to pin the blame solely on an intelligence failure. They point to a wave of low-level violence in the West Bank that shifted some military resources there, and the political chaos roiling the country over steps by Netanyahu's far-right government to overhaul the judiciary. The controversial plan has threatened the cohesion of the IDF, seen as the People's Army. And Israel has also been preoccupied and torn apart by Netanyahu's judicial overhaul plan. Netanyahu had received repeated warnings by his defense chiefs, as well as several former leaders of the country's intelligence agencies, that the divisive plan was chipping away at the cohesion of the country's security services. So obviously, news is continuing to develop. We're learning more and more about some of the failures of the Israeli government in knowing and that this attack was coming and foiling it ahead of time. We'll learn more in the coming days and weeks, but one thing that is certain, Netanyahu is certainly having no issue with absolutely leveling the Gaza Strip right now. Innocent Palestinians dying as a result of Hamas's disgusting terror attack on Israeli civilians. So at the end of the day, lots of innocent people, lots of civilians have died and will continue to die in coming weeks and potentially months. And who knows what other international actors are gonna get involved in this. Because again, you have the United States and its Western allies pointing to Iran as the country that is aiding and abetting Hamas in its attacks against Israel.
Yeah.
Israel has been attempting to drag the United States into a war with Iran. I think it's far more likely that might happen.
Yeah, and then we're all screwed. Not just Israelis, not just Palestinians, but idiots on our side, like Lindsey Graham, trying to start a war with Iran. Then we got a war with us and Israel and Lebanon and Iran and God knows who else gets sucked into that war. Now, we're not gonna lose that war, but we're also not gonna win that war. Everybody's gonna lose that war, everybody. There's gonna be so much carnage and death. Lindsey Graham will be ecstatic, the right wing in both Israel and Palestine. I don't know about ecstatic, but they've never wanted peace, never. And so, okay, last thing. Look, sometimes intelligence gathering is just, technical, using technology, etc. And that's great. And I hope America does that brilliantly. I hope Israel does that well. Sometimes it's from individuals, and one way of putting it is collaborators, and that gets pretty brutal, right? But no matter what you think of intelligence and how they gather intelligence, they obviously didn't gather it correctly. That's not in question. I mean, whoever was in charge of intelligence, and obviously of the country, in this case Netanyahu as well, the buck stops there, you blew it. There's no disputing that. Now that doesn't mean that you're morally culpable or you're more morally culpable than Hamas. No, we're not saying any of that. Hamas is morally culpable. But in terms of protecting the Israeli people, Netanyahu bragged forever and ever about how he was gonna be the best at that. And it turns out, as a matter of literal fact, he was the worst at it. So you could be mad at Hamas, and you should be mad at Hamas. But you should also be mad at your leaders, and I'm mad at Bush for not protecting us on 9/11, and I'm mad at Netanyahu for not doing any of the actual legwork you need to do the intelligence, to gather the intelligence to protect your civilians. You blew it.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members, because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a Young Turk.